Okay, it looks like we might still have a few more people trickling in, but I think we can go ahead and get started because we have a lot to cover. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Chris Hunter and I work for Stop Waste. I'll explain a little bit who Stop Waste is in just a moment, but we are so excited for today's demonstration and webinar on cooking techniques for reducing food waste and enjoying all of the great bounties of late summer produce.
Okay.
Before we get started, just some quick housekeeping notes. This event is in a webinar format, which means everyone is automatically muted and has their videos turned off. We encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation. Please use the Q&A box, which you can find at the bottom of your screen for questions related to the content. If you're having any technical difficulties hearing us or things like that, or just other comments to make, please use the chat box, which is also down at the bottom of your screen. And then finally, this event is being recorded, but if for whatever reason you have to drop off early, we will be sending a recording of the event along with slides and links to any other resources mentioned following the event. And before we get into the actual content, we just want to do a quick poll just to see who's in the room and ask you a couple of questions that we will be covering later on. So hopefully everyone can see this poll. I'll give it about 90 seconds for everyone to complete.
Good, we'll get some good feedback.
Okay, we've almost everyone, so give it 10 more seconds if you're not done yet.
Nice.
Wrap up. All right. So hopefully everyone can see these results. So it looks like majority are from the northern part of Alameda County, so Berkeley and Oakland area. Have a couple from elsewhere in Alameda County, from the central and southern parts of the county. A few folks from other parts of the Bay Area, and just a handful from outside of the Bay Area. And then in terms of what cooktops do people use, have about 2/3 are on gas ranges and 1/3 on electric ranges. No one is on induction, so we're gonna learn all about that. And then we have 1 or 2 people who are using an electric hot plate at home.
Absolutely.
And then what types of food groups do people waste most? Not surprising, is leftovers at number 1. That's the one I struggle with the most. Followed by fresh produce, and then your carbohydrates, so bread, pasta, rice, and grains. And then just a little bit less for bottled and jarred sauces and condiments that people let go to waste, as well as meat products and eggs and dairy. If you have other things that weren't on this list, or you want to specify a little bit more, feel free to put those into the chat. I see one person said that they don't let food go to waste, which is great. Love to hear that. And maybe you can teach us a little bit something in the chat later on.
Definitely.
Just what we'll cover today, I'm going to start with a welcome, just talk about who Stop Waste is, who we are here today. Talk a little bit about why food waste matters for climate change and for the health of your communities, and then also about induction cooking technology and why that matters for climate change and your own health. And so lay a little bit of the context, and then we'll turn it over to a really exciting cooking demonstration with Chef Rachelle Boucher of Kitchens to Life. She's going to demonstrate a few different ideas for doing a simmered sauce, quick pickling of vegetables, and using up zucchini, which are some of the most common vegetables that go to waste in the summer. And then finally, we'll just finish up by covering a few resources that might help you to make the switch to induction cooking or find ways to reduce food waste at home. And then we hope to have about 15 minutes for Q&A at the end. Again, I encourage you to put questions into the chat throughout the presentation. Anything we can't answer through text, we will address at the end. So this presentation is being put on by Stop Waste. If you are not familiar with us, we are a public agency serving Alameda County, as well as its 14 cities and 2 sanitary districts. Stop Waste provides a wide range of services related to solid waste reduction, energy efficiency, and just general environmental sustainability. And this webinar is actually kind of exciting. It's a bit of a crossover between our food waste reduction team and our energy and buildings team, which I actually sit on. And so we do a lot of work around working with the cities in Alameda County on their solid waste reduction laws and ordinances. We do environmental education, and we also work to provide some rebates for energy efficiency. So we'll cover those a little bit more further on in the presentation.
Nice.
So sure, the thing that most people are most interested in learning about is food waste. And this is really one of the biggest issues if you are someone that cares about sustainability and climate change, or even just about the economy. So much shocking stat is that 40% of all food in the US is wasted. That's 133 billion pounds per year and $218 billion of financial waste. And in Alameda County, specifically, food is the #1 category of waste that goes to landfill. Reducing food waste is one of the leading solutions to climate change, and it's something that everyone can do. You don't need to buy anything. You don't need to have any special knowledge. It's just something that you need to know it's the right thing to do and learn some basic tips and techniques that might help you along the way. And as it relates to climate change, there's 2 main ways that food waste contributes to climate change. And the first is that when food is disposed in the landfill rather than in specialized composting facilities, it releases quite a bit of methane, which is a greenhouse gas that's 20 to 50 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So it is a huge emitter of emissions that leads to climate change. And then the second is that when we waste food, we're not just wasting that food, but we're wasting all of the energy and the water and the labor and the resources that went into producing that food. And so that's where that $218 billion of waste comes from. And all those resources to grow the food, use the fertilizers, transport the food to your house is all going to waste when you throw something out. And if we've learned anything recently, it's that individual actions really can make a difference, both locally and globally. Right now is the perfect time to take climate action and really make an effort to lower the amount of food that you let go to waste.
Yes.
And then before we get to the demonstration, I also want to highlight that Chef Rachelle today is going to be cooking on a high-end induction cooktop. These are really exciting, not necessarily new technology, but a technology that's really growing in popularity. And a lot of people, when you mention electric induction cooking, they have these fears of these horrible coil systems from the 70s.
Yes.
I have one of these in my house. They're not great. I understand why the aversion to these. Induction works a little bit differently. Rather than using electricity to heat up the surface, it uses electromagnetic waves that interact with the metal in the cookware that you're using. And so it turns the cookware itself into the vehicle for heat rather than the stove. And so because of that, they are 80 to 90% efficient. 80 to 90% of the electricity you are using is going directly into heating your food up. Whereas with gas, that number is closer to 40 or 50%. So you're going to use less energy, maybe see your energy bill go down a little bit. And then the really big benefit here is on indoor air quality. We'll talk about that on the next slide just a little bit. And then finally, they're also just fantastic to cook on. They are much easier to clean.
Yes.
They are more powerful. You can boil water in about half the time, and they're more precise. They can change temperature quicker. And so Rachelle's going to go all into that. And then later on, we'll talk about some resources to actually make the switch in your own home. And then the last thing I want to cover is just, I mentioned the health impacts of gas stoves. I think these are some pretty shocking statistics that come out of the Rocky Mountain Institute, their leading think tank on this, that children who grow up in a home with a gas stove are 24 to 42% more likely to develop asthma.
Right.
And then for children with asthma, after their home went through a comprehensive energy upgrade, which included a handful of upgrades, one of which was switching from gas to induction, hospital admissions for asthma fell by nearly 85% and emergency room visits by 68%.
Amazing.
So when we talk about healthy cooking, we're not just talking about, eating food that's good for your body, but we're also talking about the way that you cook can impact your health as well. And not just your health, but by reducing air pollution, the health of your community and the health of the planet.
Yes.
So with that, I am going to stop sharing and turn it over to our wonderful guest, Chef Rachelle Boucher of Kitchens to Life. She's an induction cooking super fan, and she'll also be joined by my colleague, Robin Fluchock with Stop Waste, who is a program manager who works a lot on our food waste reduction team.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. Well, great. So we'll get this part of the party started. Thank you guys so much. This came out of our last class together with Chef Allison and from Ends and Stems. And I always consider myself, like, chefs are generally very frugal. We've learned early in the restaurant world that you have to save every little thing that you can. And, food cost is a big thing. And when I worked with Chef Allison in the last class, I even leveled up from there. So these experiences work. We all share our passion and our expertise, and it's really exciting. So I'll do a really brief intro, and then we'll kick it over to Robin. You could talk about yourself a little bit, and then I'll tell you what I have going on here. So Chef Rachelle, as I mentioned, I have been in the appliance world as a corporate chef for decades. So I was a chef in a restaurant, sous chef first, of course, dishwasher, sous chef, all the way. And then for many years, actually, I was, and still on occasion, I'm a private chef. So I get to be someone's pet chef in their home. And I've also, on the other side of that, done a lot of work with homeless programs and culinary education for people that are unhoused. So I'm really lucky. I live between the human and the food, and often there's an appliance in the middle. So I call myself an appliance whisperer, and I am the #1 induction super fan. As a chef that works with appliances, my whole job is to work on the biggest gas ranges there are that are really expensive, and also every type of cooktop as well. And induction won me over 10 years ago. And you guys, Berkeley, love you guys. You got this party started. And when Berkeley started the first ordinances and the first reach codes, I said, this is it. This is my moment. And ever since then, thank you, all of you. And then all of you guys that do sustainability work, thank you for letting me just shout my love for this to the rooftops. But we're definitely going to talk about food waste today and using up every little thing you can. And I want to kick it over to my co-host because she's got a ton of expertise to share. And then I will tell you what we're making and just get going.
Thank you so much. I'm excited. I just wish I was with you to smell and savor and eat. It's dinner time. I'm hungry.
Exactly.
My name is Robin Fluchock. I'm a program manager at Stop Waste. I've been at Stop Waste for a number of years. I initially started working with the cities and the residents in implementing curbside compost programs. And in recent time, we've really started to think about upstream and how we still love compost. We still want all of the food scraps, the uneaten parts, to go into the green bin or the home compost bin. But we really want people to think about not wasting that food to begin with. And we have a website, stopfoodwaste.org, where we have a lot of tips and recipes and tools to help people reduce their household food waste. Because with those numbers that Chris presented earlier, a lot of that waste actually comes from the household. It is one of the biggest sources of food waste. And I think all of us feel a little bit like oh, I don't waste that much, or maybe I do waste. And the truth is, we all do, even, if we've been working at it for a while, it's a process, and every now and then things, life gets ahead of you and you waste food, but there are a lot of really easy solutions to just minimize that and be a little more conscious of it. And I'm excited to share those with you and see what you're going to cook tonight and add some information where I can.
Please do. Absolutely. So saving summer, we've got all the tomatoes and all the zucchini just lying around. It's amazing. So of course, many of you know this, many of you do a lot of batch cooking, for example. So we'll talk about tomato sauce because that's something I love to make. And I just love getting my hands in and smushing the tomatoes. I just think it's incredible. So just briefly, I'm going to put the induction cooktop on. I've got a room temperature pot of water here. I'm going to quickly blanch the tomatoes. So I've already got a good amount. I took out some of my sauce that I made earlier, and I'll do a small batch of this, but I'm going to put on my induction top and we're going to crank it up, right? So you saw that my hand went into this water. You can also see that I'm quite spread out on top of the cooktop. I use the entire surface, which is amazing. So with tomatoes, many of you probably already do this, but at the farmer's market, you can get the funky, saucy ones, the ones that are for sauce. They could have, bruises. It's okay. They can have a little funky part here. We're just going to trim that off. So before I blanch, I'm going to just blanch off the seeds. I am going to just trim off any kind of, funky bits that go down beneath the surface. I am also going to just remove the stem. And then what I've done with these is I cut a little X in the bottom of the tomato, and that's just going to be kind of my little bit of peeling that I have. And we're going to get that going. So I'm just going to blanch these for a moment. But while this is, and I don't have to wait long for a pot to boil. And Robin, in a little bit, once we get going, we'll talk about cookware. You've got a good little trick for that, but hold that thought for a second. As this is coming up, I just want to let often people say, and I understand, I have been in the appliance industry forever. I understand the perception of gas, big BTUs, 20,000 BTUs being better. It's not nearly as strong as even a mid-range induction. As you talked about, Chris, with the efficiencies, if you have, say, 20,000 BTUs, but 70% of that heat is going into the air and getting me hot, you hot, getting all your handles super hot and making you turn on your AC a lot more, then it's really not efficient at all because you're really cutting down on those BTUs. One pushback that people talk about, and there's many, and I really understand where they come from. One of them is, well, you can't char a pepper. Well, part of this sauce is with charred peppers. I love to have, there's tons of peppers out there right now. And so I just want to show you, because I started this earlier because we have quite a few things, but this is just, a pepper that was put right into a nice hot pan. This has done a beautiful job of charring. So just like when you do it on your cooktop, you just turn it, and then you get this incredible result. Now, another way, and we're going to share these recipes with you, another way that I roast peppers, and we have boiling already, is in your oven. So in today's electric kitchens, it's not only about induction, but it's also about taking advantage of your ovens. They're electric, right? So think about how you can char peppers using your broiler, right? There's a lot of ways to do it. In this recipe that I'm going to give you, you roast the peppers, and then there's also a ton of roasted garlic. So this recipe is roasted garlic and red pepper tomato sauce. So the peppers and the garlic get roasted together. There it is. So really nice. So just quickly, probably lots of you all roast garlic. I love garlic, but raw messes me up, people. So what I did, and this recipe calls for 6 heads. It gets so sweet, and it's just this thick, wonderful paste when you roast it. Roast a ton of it, scrape it into a little container, keep it in your freezer. You can keep it in your fridge with a little oil covering the top, but I like to keep it in the freezer. And then you get this wonderful result. So you roast your peppers for about 40 minutes. And then you, along with the garlic, you take the foil off the garlic and let that finish browning like this. And then, ta-da, your result is incredible. You have the roasted peppers. I peeled a couple of these and I'm going to save those because those are sweet. They've got flavor, and we're going to do a little quick stock. And then I squeezed the garlic right out of from the bottom. So again, many of you probably do this. You can batch cook a whole bunch of this, just squeeze it right out. I have the glove on for that very reason. And then what I'm going to do is then I remove if you've got sort of that root, and that can have dirt in it sometimes, so I'll cut off that root. But I'm going to save these papers, and they are going to go also into the stock. So hold that thought. So it's a really rich and delicious, look how quickly we are boiling.
Chef Rachelle, there was a question about what you had to char the, if there was oil or anything to char the pepper.
Oh, great question. So in the pan, you can do it dry, but I usually use just a little bit of a neutral high heat oil. It just goes more quickly. So that's a great question. And then in my boiling water, I have my tomatoes that I cut that little X. I love it. You're like feeding me these questions. This is wonderful.
There's another one.
Yeah, bring it on, bring it on.
Is that a special bowl that you have for, it looks from our view, it looks like a regular bowl. Is it a pot? How is that just,
yes. Is
it a special
bowl?
This
is a really amazing, I work often with a company called Heston. They are out of Napa, and this is a nanobond wok. It's a very fancy wok. You can do this on a lot of different cookware. Cast iron, it doesn't need to be a rounded pan. It can be a flat pan. This is a Le Creuset cast iron, or you can use a plain old Lodge, and you can char that pepper right on that flat surface. So it doesn't have to be in the big bowl of a pot. But this is really fun because woks work. They work really well, either this type of a wok, the nanobond, or you can get a really good, wok from Chinatown. And Robin, talk about cookware since we're on that. Like, how do you decide? So I'm going to pull these out meanwhile, and I'm going to peel these, and then we'll finish up this sauce. I'm going to get it simmering. But Robin, talk a little bit about cookware selection with induction, because that is something that people think, oh, I've got to change out all my cookware, and that's not the case.
Well, you told me this, so I thought I would try it at home, but you said that if this is a magnet from my refrigerator and it has a little stone on it, and if your pot is magnetic, this is like a older dance cookware that I like, then that would work on induction. And then I also got a very well seasoned cast iron, and it also sticks very well. So I found that 2 of my favorite pots would work on induction. So that was a fun little experiment. So
I love it. I love it. So I'm pulling the tomatoes out. I always like to work on a little flat surface. So great thing. We learn from each other. And then this water, because I've washed all my tomatoes beforehand, I can use this blanching water. It doesn't have salt or anything. And that can actually become my stock. So I'm going to turn it off. And Robin, a little tip about cookware is you can do the sides, but sometimes pots don't stick, the magnet doesn't stick on the side, but it'll stick on the bottom. So quick little smart tip. And then what I'll do, like I said, is I'm going to take these peels and the garlic, the paper from the garlic, and put them right in there, and then just build that sauce. So
I keep a little freezer bag of all of my veggie cuttings, my carrot tops and onion skins and things like that I'm cutting throughout. And I just put it in a little bag in the freezer. So when I'm ready to make a stock, I have all of that good stuff, the tops to celery and
So just peeling this, look how easily that comes off. It's amazing. Now in this sauce, you're going to blend this together. You can use a blender, a stick blender, anything like that. So I already have the garlic that's been blended in here. I've already gotten this started. I just want to show you, and then I would blend in the peppers. And then in the if you're doing it from the beginning, you would then use a paring knife or your hands and just peel, and it comes right off. I love it. Now, I like to do this by hand. I love, like I said, just getting my hands all in there. And it's wonderful. And then what you can do is if you're making sauce, the inside, that I don't care about having some of the seeds in there, but I do take out some of them. It just can add a lot of liquid and a little bit of bitterness. So you can just kind of squeeze this just a little bit, get a little bit of the seeds out. And then a lot of times people really struggle cutting the core out of stuff. And I understand. There goes a lemon. I've got like a little coring tool here, or you can cut around it. It's not very sharp, people. Cool. And I just barely take that core out. I don't usually add stems and lots and lots of, and like the core or into my sauces or my stock. But it depends on what, if you taste it and it tastes bitter, don't add it, right? So
somebody asked why blanch. Do you lose nutrients when you blanch, or what's the purpose of blanching?
Sure. So if you just chop up tomatoes and you make a sauce, what'll happen is the little pieces of stem, or the little pieces of the skin will curl all up, and they're just kind of not that fun to eat. So when you have tomato sauce of any type, you're just doing this to peel it. So you don't really need to cook the tomato in the water. You're just doing that just the same way that I roast the pepper. Just because the skin is it just gets to be these strange little curls.
So it's a textural thing.
Yeah, it's a texture thing, exactly. And this way I'm actually saving, getting a lot of that color and flavor into my stock. So it's great.
I have heard some people do put stems in their sauce. They like the flavor of it, but I guess that's a personal preference too.
Depends on the stem, right? Exactly. You certainly can. It just depends. Sometimes I find that stems can harbor a little dirt here and there. So if that's how you do it, awesome. And then what I'll do is, this already has the black pepper, but I do add a little bit of brown sugar. And again, in the recipe that I give you, it's for 14 pounds of tomatoes. So it's a big batch. And then I love fresh fennel seeds. It's delicious, dried fennel seeds. And so I just grind those up and then just let that simmer really almost from the beginning. I love, when you eat that little bite of fennel, it's a little texture and it's wonderful.
Can you tilt the pot a little so we can see?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So I'm gonna stir that up. And of course, I will normally blend this. You can use like I said, a stick blender, but be careful, don't lift it out because this is hot and it'll spatter everywhere. Done it. And then I usually use a little good quality balsamic vinegar. This is my favorite. This is my friend, has a company called All of This, All of That. She's in Noe Valley, and I can't cook without her stuff. When I run out of her oils and vinegars, I cease to exist. Just kidding. And then a couple important things. When you are doing big pot cooking, especially tomato sauce, as it thickens and as it cooks down, what happens sometimes to even the best of us on the bottom of the pot?
You don't want it to burn.
Yeah, it really can burn. And that's really difficult. That's why for me, the control of induction is far superior. Instead of sticking my face down and kind of trying to see where that heat is, I very quickly get to know that, my level 4 is just a super simmer. Now that does take a while to sort of adjust. So I have a lot of respect that there is a learning curve. So briefly on this, and we'll keep going with questions, but I'll move on to the next thing is I have, wait, where is you can this. If you, in the recipe I give you, if you want to can, of course, you'll have your clean and sanitized jars. You put just a little bit of lemon juice inside. I kind of swish it around. That gives it additional acidity. And then you're going to fill it up just about, give about an inch of what they call head space, which is just the little top. Even if you're just putting it for the refrigerator, I always give it a little space. Wipe it clean, and then you put your lid on and follow the canning directions, and that's incredible. For those of you that have a Combi steam oven or a steam oven, which are amazing, that is the easiest way to can in the world, because you put them in, you don't have to put them in the big pot. So I will let this simmer a little bit more, but we'll move on unless there's some questions. We're doing all right?
Yeah, great.
I love it.
About
And then the
6:30.
last, yes. Now the last step for this, once I simmer this down, in the recipe that I give you, there's a lot of fresh herbs in this. So I will cook it down, make sure it's pureed, and then what you want to do is taste it. Taste it a bunch of times at the end. And do you want more salt? Do you want a little more sugar? Do you want to balance the acidity a little more? The balsamic I have is kind of sweet. So balance that out. And then I let it cool just a little bit. And then we are just going to put a whole lot of basil in there. And then I even have parsley and oregano. So this can accept a lot of garlic, a lot of herbs, and it just tastes wonderful. So I like it.
So a question from my
Yes.
mom.
Oh,
What is a Combi steam oven?
Sure.
Oh,
So
wow. That was a fancy graphic.
Oh, my producer is also my husband. He's pretty great. So there are quite a few ovens now that are steam ovens. So, and Combi steam ovens are oven plus steam together. And they're also a really amazing solution for, appliances today. So for me, I don't have a big giant kitchen. I don't have an unlimited budget, but boy, I got my Combi steam and I'm never giving it up. But there's ways that you can put together an electric kitchen. It doesn't have to break the bank. So let's think about next trick. So how many of you pickle? Yes? What do people pickle? Write it in the chat and I can get some. We're going to do quick pickle. And I started to do this because I love Vietnamese food. I love Asian food. And one of the best things is the quick pickle condiment. I got a thing for jalapenos. I love them. And so I love the pickled jalapenos, but that has a lot of the commercial ones do have a lot of salt. So I try to make them myself. So really, really easy over here. And if you take a look, this is actually a copper pot. Can you see? We'll move it. But it is copper clad. So the bottom, like we talked about, Robin, I can't get a magnet to stick here, but the magnet sticks on the bottom. So this is also from Heston. I love it. Not all copper works. So I understand that is definitely not a myth. So I'm just going to put this on. My brine is very easy. You can use pretty inexpensive vinegar, which I love. In this case, I use apple cider vinegar. You can use rice wine vinegar, even white vinegar. And it's 1.5 cups of the vinegar and 1.5 cups of water, a little bit of sugar and a little bit of salt. And I just bring it to a boil. Now, if you have something very thinly sliced, which I'll show you, you don't really have to cook it. You can just go with the thin slice. Now, one of the things, if you notice, even though I'm cooking on here, do you see how I can actually use the induction cooktop as my cook prep surface? I am really, really safe from heat. There's no fire. I like that. So over here, I'm going to do a little bit of a mandolin. These are really amazing, but a tremendously dangerous tool. So always use the guard unless you have if your piece is really tall, you can't use the guard until you get down lower. And so if you've got really thin vegetables, then that's fine. You can just put them into bring the brine up to a boil, turn it off, and just actually put the vegetables really beautifully in a glass jar so you can make it look really fun. One of my favorite free foraging things out there right now is all this fennel growing everywhere. I mean, how cool is that? So you can get all these beautiful fennel fronds and they are delicious. They also have the fennel pollen all over them, and that is like gold. So you can just layer all this good stuff in here, and you could do sort of different layers or put them around the edge and be really cute about it. And then just put your brine. So all I'm doing with the brine is just bringing it up quickly to a boil and then dissolving the sugar and the salt. Cool.
So did you say that the cooktop is no longer hot when you turn it off? Do I understand that?
It's kind of uncanny. So yes and no. So because the magnetic connection is happening inside the pan, it's not heating up and inefficiently transferring heat. So the pan becomes my vessel. It does. So this was just boiling. It does get hot. But it's just the reflected heat from the pan. And if you look, this was just boiling. Look how close I can hold that. It's incredible. So for this, when you're making this, like I said, I love jalapenos, but it's a little bit of a tricky thing to know, like how hot is each jalapeno. So if you like, you can put the jalapeno into the brine and you can cook it slightly or just let it sit in that heat. Otherwise, you can just load them into the jar and fill it. So it depends on what you like. So in this recipe, I love cumin. There is the white part of the green onion. I put 4 cloves of garlic and lots of jalapeno. I like to leave the seeds in, but remember those seeds and the membrane are where the heat comes from. So keep that in mind. So are there any questions about or thoughts or input about pickling as I finish this part up?
Well, I have a little share.
Yes.
My parents, who I told you are watching, always make lemon cucumbers, which are a favorite summer pickle. And I'm kind of lazy, and they make the pickles, and then when I eat them all, I just add cucumbers back or other vegetables back into my existing brine that they already made. And that way I can like do a second round. It's not obviously as good as the first round, but it is a great way to kind of use the sauce. It's also great in like potato salad or something like that when you're just trying to use up your sauces. So that was my little share of the
I love that.
lazy person's pickle. Even if you bought store-bought pickles, you can add some carrots or other things in there and make some pickles.
Absolutely, no question. And keep in mind, quick pickles they won't last nearly as long as a fully made pickle. There's less salt in there. They are not brought up to the same temperature. So if you do that, I mean, these will last about 2 months, right?
In the fridge.
In the fridge, yes, good point. You can can them as well, and then they'll last as long as until you open them and longer. But if you do reuse it, kind of keep in mind how long that's been there. And if you need to, strain it out and just bring it back to the boil. And then that way it's, but generally it's not going to be a problem. It's really hard for any kind of bacteria or anything to live in a very, very salty brine. That's why we use it. So that's a good share. I love it. So I will just get some of these Vietnamese food is, it's like my favorite thing ever. So I try to use a lot of pickled vegetables. You can even do julienne, anything like that. So this is lovely. And I will share with you the recipes. Like I said, I've got the jalapeno, and then you can just do a mixed vegetable. Cauliflower is great, all kinds of things. All right. So any questions on that? And look, see, I'm so used to reaching everywhere now that when I do cook on gas, which is only one of my clients has it, and I have to be careful that I don't light myself on fire after all these years of knowing how not to do that. All right, one thing quickly too is ventilation is still important with induction. So with all of these things, this one has ventilation right here in the center, but you don't have to get those gigantic gas range hoods. So that can be a real win. All right, so let me show you this last thing because we're going to talk about zucchini. So those of you that are dealing with massive quantities of zucchini, I feel you, I understand. To me, the way that parsley, parsley is called the universal herb because you can put parsley on anything. It's like mint to dessert, right? Parsley goes on everything. Zucchini to me is like the universal vegetable. It can go into, onto, all around everything. So I'll show you this fun recipe that I love. This is, I just cut zucchini. And again, this is a really nice and inexpensive mandolin. It's really nice. It's called by Progressive. I don't know them, but it has an adjustment right here for your thickness, which I love. So I went kind of thick on this, and then I just trimmed the very top of the zucchini off, right? Just the very, very top. And that way I can slice away. So I was able to draw that along and slice off these little planks of zucchini. And then I just quickly, before we started today, I just tenderized them, just 2 or 3 minutes on either side on a nice low heat. And right next to it, I just toasted a little pine nuts for fun, for the garnish. And then I'll show you this recipe. Now, for those of you that have, while I'm doing this, what are some zucchini tricks? How does everybody out there use zucchini? Give me a couple ideas while I'm putting this together. And what I'm doing, I have a goat cheese mixture. This is goat cheese, lemon zest. There are a lot of lemons out there, right? So just the outer zest of the lemons, and then a little bit of lemon juice, salt, and instead of parsley, I had basil today, so I put basil in there. I've mixed this together, and then I'm able to spread it. I don't know if I can show this over here, over this side. There we go. So I spread that on just the top sort of third of it, and we'll roll this up into a beautiful rollatini. So if you'd like, you can sit this just on a plate. You can skewer it. You can even leave them on the pan. And then right before you're ready to serve it, just give it a little warm up or serve them cold or room temperature. So while I put 2 more of these together, how do you guys zucchini out there?
There were a couple questions before
Yes.
we talk about how we zucchini.
You got it.
One is when you show the center of where the ventilation is, where does it vent to? Is it venting out through the floor, or there was a question about that?
Absolutely. So most induction cooktops, like I said, will still need an overhead vent, but they are much smaller and much quieter, but you still need to get, even though you're not pulling out really frightful gases, there's still particulate matter. In this case, this is a cooktop by a company called Elica, and you can either vent it outside, out the back, like if you're close to a wall, or you can actually recirculate it. So what's really exciting is there are a lot of innovations that are happening in induction that are helping people make those choices, because right now they are more expensive than an equivalent gas. Kind of, there's a bit of a story to that, but they are like right out of the gate. But when, like I said, when you pair it with ventilation, it can be a much better story. But they are more expensive. And so that is an important challenge for people, I understand. But companies are coming out with a lot of exciting technology and a lot of fun things. And it will inspire people all up and down the price range for your kitchen, so you can put together great kitchens at different price points. So that's happening.
Great. Well, I will answer a question about zucchini. I have a neighbor who is a very avid gardener, but
Yes.
sometimes loses track of how big the zucchini is. And so I have received very large zucchini, as big as my arm, and they're not that sweet or flavorful when they get that big sometimes. So one of the things I like to do is I like to just shred it and then do a very slow cook, which I think would be great for the induction. It's a very, and you just basically caramelize it with a little bit of garlic or shallots and olive oil, and then you can cook a ginormous zucchini down to a a nice spread. That's my go-to when I have, ginormous zucchinis too.
I love that. And do you kind of, sometimes as they get bigger, sort of the center gets a little fibrous and hollow out. Sometimes I'll carve out a little bit of that, but I love that idea. And you called it zucchini butter?
That's what the recipe is.
I love that idea. That is one that I'm absolutely stealing. So for the zucchini rollatini, I'm just going to keep them on this pan. You have your little optional pine nuts. Before I serve it, I can put some, I might warm it up just a little for fun. And then, and what I like about this too, is I can warm something slightly and I can serve from the cooktop without the same level of danger. I really like that. So I'm going to do just a little bit of fancy salt, and then we'll do basil, and then a little balsamic, maybe a little drizzle, but it's a great treat. But I want to tell you about zucchini from my private chef world. So as a private chef, I do a lot of beautiful salads. Many clients of all types, many people of all types, it's hard. There's a difference of like making your own salad versus like when you get a big, beautiful, swanky salad just put in front of you that's giant. I have one client that says, "Oh, your salads are too big." I love him. He is a very legendary person, but he complains about the salads and eats them every time. And after about the 5th time, I said, "Stop complaining about the giant salads." And he was like, "You're right." So I understand when you get a salad given to you. Now, one great thing that I do with zucchini all year long is I incorporate them in different forms, especially into salads. So let me just kind of hand that over. So one thing I do is zucchini can be, of course, noodles and zoodles. Those are beautiful. So if you think about zucchini, it can bring moisture to a dish. It can bring color to a dish. It can bring texture to a dish. And I use it, and of course, nutrients. So I just barely trim off that itty bit little piece. You don't have to, but I do. And then, zoodles kind of had a big heyday, but I really like them for several things. So this can be, there's a large and a small sort of end, and you can just twist and turn. What I do is when you get to the center of this, there does start to be sort of a look, we can put it on here. Look, see, we've got garnish already. Once you get to the middle, it does kind of get a little bit broken and seeded. You can use that, or you can kind of take a couple of those pieces out if you'd like and put them in your stock. But this is a really great trick. And I have actually, the trick though with zucchini noodles of any sort is I barely cook them, because the minute you start to add heat to them, they really lose their shape and their crunch. And that's what makes them taste feel good in your mouth. So if I have a warm sauce, I just barely toss them in that warm sauce and we're good to go. Now, another trick for my for salads is, or excuse me, you can also do noodles this way. So you can do peels like this. So just find a peeler that gives you a little bit more flesh, right? So a little bit more. Now, what I do with this, let me backtrack for a second. When I am being fancy and I'm plating food for my clients or for myself, if I want to plate the vegetables, that's a hard part. So you're doing, dinner for 20 people and you've got beautiful vegetables and you want it to look really fancy. Well, this is what I do. I'll cook off my vegetables and then I use this and maybe wrap this around like a little belt. And then my vegetables, whether it's long carrots or long asparagus. And then this holds my vegetables together. And then when I go to plate them, they're kind of packaged up. So it's really easy and it's kind of fun. You can wrap fish in this. You can wrap this around scallops and cook them. So think about, and look how it sticks together, right? So this is a wonderful sort of tool, and it's a wonderful thing that you can use as a garnish. Look how fun that is on your plate. And the same thing for salads. I'll do the same. I will peel these little curls. So instead of going long ways, I'll do maybe shorter ones. And as you go deeper, these start to curl. And then you toss those into a salad. I mean, you can put tons of these throughout a salad, and it just gives you this beautiful ribbon texture. And I love that. So that's one way. So noodles, ribbons are really great. And then of course, grating, right? I grate this and I'll put any type of protein mixture I have, whether it's meat, faux meat, anything that I'm making into a burger, a meatball, I put tons of zucchini in there, grated up. So again, moisture, you've got a lot of options. So those are just a few things, but let's kick it back to you because we're coming up to time.
One thing that's come up recently since the sky has been kind of yellow and there's been ash on the car is what to do with garden produce if it has ash on it. And we do have a tip about how to just really cleanly wash it. You can put it under running water, or you can do a really light 1 part vinegar, 10 parts water mix, and that will take the ash off of it. So there is some concern from some gardeners about like how to eat, how to make sure their produce is clean. But I'm just going to wrap up there because we're getting down to the line here. It's been amazing. I really wish I was with you to eat some of that food.
I know that's the hard part with doing this right at dinner time.
I know, and Zoom.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Thank you,
Chef Rachelle and Robin. That was awesome. I really wish we didn't have to cut you off.
No problem.
But we just have a minute left. I want to quickly share some final resources that we have to offer you. Hopefully, Rachelle sold you on Induction. I know she's sold a lot of people on it. So Southwest is a part of regional collaboration of governments called the Bay Area Regional Energy Network, or BayREN. We offer a wide variety of programs for homeowners, multifamily buildings, small businesses to help them become more energy efficient. And within that, our single family program is called the Home Plus program. We offer $5,000, up to $5,000 in rebates to homeowners to make their homes more efficient. So this is Induction as a part of this. But you can receive rebates for everything from sealing up the cracks around your home, repairing your air ducts, and adding insulation, all the way up to things like replacing your water heater and your furnace. So really great resource. It's there for the taking. We really hope everyone, takes advantage of these rebates. Let me go forward just a minute. Here's one slide. Okay, so most of the rebates, things like your water heater or insulation, to receive a rebate, you do need to go through a BayREN participating contractor. And in my follow-up email, I'll explain some instructions on where you can find that. However, the $300 rebate for switching to Induction is one of the few that you don't need a contractor for. You can do this on your own. It's a very easy process. Not going to spend too much time on this, but essentially you just need to go on our website, make a quick account, connect your PG&E account, and then upload a few photos of the old appliance, the new appliance, the receipt. And then from there, you would get $300 in the mail. And so hopefully we'll have a minute to answer some questions around cost of Induction. I know some of that was in the questions, but just want to stress this is an easy process. We'll send out these slides so you can follow these instructions step by step if you are interested. And then one of my favorite service that Home Plus offers, or that really BayREN offers in general, is the Home Energy Advisor. It's a free service. It's essentially a call line that you can call, and they will guide you through your entire home upgrade process. So if you just want to shoot ideas off of them for what your home might need, they can really help you identify, where your home might need some work and what the best solutions to that would be. They can help you find contractors. If our program isn't quite the right fit, they can help refer you to third-party programs. And they can also just answer any technical questions. So they are an awesome resource, completely unbiased. They don't earn a commission or anything like that. They're really just here to help you. So if you remember anything from this, make it this phone number and email. Again, we will send this out after the fact, but you can just call them and answer any questions you have. And then finally, as Robin referred to right at the end, Stop Waste has a wealth of resources available on our website, this stopfoodwaste.org. Anything from tips, recipes, videos. We'll add the recipes from today's presentation along with the recording onto this website so you can see it there. We also frequently on the Stop Waste social media pages will post tips and tricks, so please give us a follow. And then here are just two other chef partners that we work with. Ensign Stems
Awesome.
has a lot of great resources on meal planning to reduce
Definitely.
waste. And then Food Shift is also a really great resource that has some handy guides. And so with that, here is the contact info for everyone. I know we don't have a ton of time for questions, but let me stop sharing here. I got through all the slides. Okay, so around options for induction, there was a question around someone who said they can't replace their gas stove. Are single burner inductions possible? And the answer to that is yes. We unfortunately don't offer rebates for those. The rebate would need to be for replacing a gas range with induction. But if you have gas, you just don't want to use it anymore, or you use someone that moves around a lot, you can get for about $50 single burner induction hobs. They just plug into any normal wall outlet and work just like the one Rachelle was using. So they'll highly recommend those if you're on a budget. And then, yeah, there's a big range. I think what she's cooking on is a higher end model, but there's a huge range in price points. Don't just assume that because it's a newer technology that it's going to break the bank. I would say the lower end induction is probably more expensive than the lower end gas and electric. But once you start getting to the mid and luxury range, it's really on par, if not actually more affordable, because things like you don't need the larger ventilation system.
Yes.
There's all these factors. So yeah, if you have anything to add on that, Rachelle.
Yeah, same thing. I'm switching out at home and I'm a renter. So I have a hob right now. And I literally tore the knobs off of my gas. I am trying to pick the range that I want. And it's really tricky because I'm the same situation. I'm kind of thinking, oh, do I want something super high tech or something that looks a little bit more kind of traditional in a sense. So I'm trying to figure that out. But right now, it's hard to find any appliances at all because of supply chain issues. So it's a little tricky. It's hard to fall in love with a hob. They're not as powerful as a cooktop, but they'll get you there. They'll get you to where you really start to learn to cook in a different way and fall in love and trust induction. And then it's really hard to go back to gas.
So there was one other question at the beginning that we haven't answered yet. Actually, it relates to what you were just saying about renters. The question was, does this rebate apply to only houses or apartments as well? Unfortunately, this $300 rebate is only for homeowners who live in 1 to 4 unit properties. At the moment, we would love to offer to renters, but I think there's just some tricky stuff with renters upgrading your appliances. But that being said, if you rent a smaller building, talk to your landlord. Maybe they would be willing to do this because there is a lot of safety benefits too. Less risk of gas leaks, less risk. There's no fire in the house, so it's possible you could talk your landlord into this. And Bayrent does also offer a retrofit program for apartment buildings. And so if you're a renter, you want more information on that, you can contact me and I can help you figure out if your building might be a good fit and get in touch with your landlord. Yeah, I know we are after time, so if people have to drop off, it's great having you, and we'll expect an email from you, but there are still 1 or 2 more questions.
Of course, whatever you'd like.
So I think there's only one more actually. So someone said, can you just explain that steam oven that was shown, the Combi steam?
Yeah, sure. There are countertop models as well, and there are built-in models, and they are much smaller than, say, like behind me, a 30-inch oven. They are smaller, but they are offer steam, so you can have them plumbed, or you can have a water container that either goes inside the cavity or above, and they can do steam, convection oven, and in some cases broilers. So from the countertop models, they can be probably, oh gosh, several $100s, for example. And then you can go all the way to big, beautiful, giant ones, but that go into, $4,000 and $5,000. So there are building steam technology into a lot of different appliances, and my goodness, it's the best way to reheat food ever. I don't ever need a microwave. So there's ways that you can put together kitchens. There's different ways to think about kitchens these days than having to have a 48-inch range and double ovens. There's a lot of other ways you can do it with smaller appliances that do more than just one thing. So good to know, right?
Great. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions here. So I know we are a few minutes past time, so I think we can call that a night, but thank you so much. It was an amazing demonstration. Thanks for everyone who showed up.
Thank you,
Again,
Robin.
Yeah, oh, sorry. Thank you, Robin, too.
Thank you.
And yeah, expect an email from us, and yeah, feel free to reach out at any point if you have any questions about the cooking or the induction pizza bits.
And thank you, Berkeley. You got this party started.
Have a good night.
Good night.